Welcome to a special Breeders' Cup edition of the TwinSpires Jury. I'm Ashley Anderson here with TwinSpires Jury. I'm Ashley Anderson here with James Scully and Vance Hanson to look back on Monday night's post-position draw as we look ahead to the Breeders' Cup World Championships at Santa Anita on Friday and Saturday. James and Vance, you're our resident Breeders' Cup experts. You've covered many past Breeders' Cup races. And James, after last night's post-position draw, did you feel like anyone came away a winner?
Well, the biggest favorite of the morning line favorite in the 14 Breeders' Cup races is Tamara in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly. So I definitely thought getting post 7 for her and for her connections was a big sigh of relief. They probably didn't want to be down on the rail and, might have had a concern on the far outside. So drawing in the middle is perfect. For me, it's more about posts that might be detrimental. I think there were a lot of other winners on the post position draw. Vance, what did you think?
I kind of tend to downplay post position for the most part, just because a lot of these races are long, that horses are going to have ample opportunity to get themselves into the position that they want to. But I think one that kind of stood out for me as getting a positive post was Motorius in the 5 furlong turf sprint. A horse for the course in this race has kind of tended to favor horses for the courses in the past. And Motorius has appreciated outside draws, not only at Santa Anita, but at Del Mar over the last season or two. And I think he's perfectly spotted to kind of chase the pace on the outside, find his rhythm, and then hopefully come in with his patented late burst.
Well, talking about the gate draw specifically with the biggest race, the $6 million Breeders' Cup Classic, we had news earlier this week about Japanese shipper Ushba Tesoro having some issues with gate schooling, and he kicked out multiple times. Did that concern you all, either of you, for the Breeders' Cup Classic? James?
Yes, it did. He's going to have to get adjusted to it still. I know they're going to put some padding in there and try to make it more comfortable, but he obviously didn't like that. They're going to have to get him in the gate to start with. And if he acts up too much before that, could burn some energy. So I think it's a concern. I don't like to see any hiccup. White Barrio is another example as well. So I think those things can be overcome, but it's not something I like to see, Vance.
Yeah, you're exactly right on all of those points. I guess I would point out that the horse did ship to Dubai and obviously won the Dubai World Cup. So he does have experience running in places that he's not used to running and adapting. So I'm hoping by Saturday that he will adapt and he'll run his race.
Well, our own Andrew Brown caught up with Kate Hunter, the Breeders' Cup Japan representative, who talked about Ushba Tesoro's gate issues. Let's see what she had to say.
Yeah, I think he's settled in really well. The Ushba Tesoro that I've seen is not running around is pretty similar to that I've seen in Miho. I think that the gate this morning obviously has caused some people to prick their ears a little bit, but I feel he's never had a problem in the gate before. Prior to this, I'm not concerned. It's just a matter of making sure that he gets relaxed when he goes out there the second time.
All right, speaking of the Japanese contingent, how do you rate the chances of the other Japanese runners at the Breeders' Cup, Vance?
I think the most obvious major contender outside the one that they have for the Classic is morning line favorite Songline in the Breeders' Cup Mile. She is the top miler in Japan, having won the Yasuda Kanen for the second year in a row over the summer. I guess one concern is that we don't know how good the competition in Japan is compared to the ones in Europe and North America. She doesn't have too much collateral form to go by, but Songline does deserve a lot of respect, especially since the European contingent is not as deep in the mile this year. I guess another major concern with the Songline is that she is a horse that is running on a configuration that's a lot tighter than she's used to. She's a come from behind sort. She might encounter some traffic trouble here, but she definitely belongs in the discussion for this race. How about you, James?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, her races in May and June were really impressive. Songline, she was a Group 1 winner last year and early in the season, then only made one more start. And she came back from a freshening last time and missed by a nose, but I think that race could set her up for another top effort at Santa Anita. So she's definitely a clear contender. The Japanese, when they won 2 races before at Del Mar 2 years ago, they had one favorite, but one long shot in March Lorraine. So I'm going over. I mean, outside of Yushpa Tesoro and Songline, they're going to have some long shots. Some of the horses might be coming off some efforts. I did like Win Maryland. I thought she drew well. She's 3 for 6 at the distance. That's a Japanese filly that could perhaps, I think, outperform her odds because her last couple efforts, Ashley, were disappointing.
Kate Hunter also talked to Andrew Brown about Win Maryland, Dermis Odagake, and Songline. So let's see what she had to say about those horses.
The Japanese typically can run quite well off of a long break. And you have to remember, for Sotogake, he went from, as a 2-year-old, they raced him, and then he ran the Group 1 at the end of his 2-year-old career. And then he went basically straight to Saudi Arabia, and then he went to Dubai, and then the Kentucky Derby. So he had his first field break this summer. And he's come back mature. He's such a cool customer watching him walk around compared to the way he was at the Kentucky Derby. I couldn't be more thrilled to see the little adult pony that this big boy's becoming. So I'll be really excited to see what he does.
Yeah, me too. Songline, a back-to-back Group 1 winner in Tokyo, has that devastating turn of foot. Does she deserve to be the favourite in the mile?
Absolutely. I've already booked her stuffed animal, little plushie from the GRA. It's like they'd have to make one now after she crosses that finish line. I'm just telling them to start early because production needs to be sped up. But I think absolutely. I tried to get her last year. She had a setback and wasn't able to come. I think she'd be a back-to-back mile winner if she'd come both years.
Awesome. Speaking of starting early, I'm sure you're starting early tomorrow as well, so we won't go through all 9 runners, but I'm particularly interested in the Hong Kong Vase winner, Win Maryland, who's been looking fantastic out there on track. Is she a serious contender in the filly and mare turf?
I think so. I think one of the things about her, one of the things about Japanese racing is sometimes there's not enough kinds of races for these horses to find their perfect footing. And with Win Maryland and horses like Make-A-L, they're getting an opportunity to run in races against mares that they would not have had back home. There's not a Group 1 like this in Japan for either of those 2 mares. And so I'm super excited to be able to provide them the opportunity to go home with a Group 1 win.
So Hunter mentioned Win Maryland, which James, you were talking about, and she'll be racing in the Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf. Who do you all like in this race aside from Win Maryland? And do you think post position affects this race at all? Fans?
Yeah, at 1.25 miles, I don't think post is too big of a factor, and I think the European contingent here is very, very strong. In Spiral, of course, is the morning line favorite, but she's never been beyond 1 mile. Warm Heart has won at 1.25 miles. She's been more of 1.5 mile type filly this year over in Europe, but she's a multiple Group 1 winner. I think she's on the upside for Aidan O'Brien, and I'm going to pick her over in Spiral in the filly mare turf. James?
Both those fillies are major win contenders in my eyes. I do want to mention, though, I found the race dynamics in the filly and mare turf to be a little interesting because you're going to, in Italian, who's 4-1 during the post 1. So she's the speed in the race. She set the pace last year and held for second when Tuesday caught her in the stretch. And to me, there's not much speed in the field. So that makes the decision that Fev Rover and Fev Rover's jockey make from the starting gate pretty interesting to me, because that's a filly that likes to race on or very close to the lead. She was able to stay close to In Italian and sort of prompt her perhaps a little bit in the middle stages of the race. In the Diana, she comes off a front running win in the Grade 1 EP Taylor. So I think Fev Rover, if she's not forward, In Italian has the potential to get a dream trip. Be interested to see how that happens. In Italian doesn't look like a filly that favors the 1.25 mile distance, but I will point out that in the filly and mare turf history, Intercontinental and Day at the Spa, Intercontinental at Belmont going 10 furlongs in 05 and Day at the Spa at Santa Anita in 2014. Both of them had a similar profile where they looked more like milers, 1 1/8 types, and they got on the lead and they led wire to wire at 10 furlongs. So in Italian, she's not my top pick, but she's a filly that I'll have on all horizontal, multi-race wagers because of her speed, Ashley.
James, you mentioned Fev Rover, and Andrew Brown was busy last night at the post position draw. He talked to trainer Mark Cassie about Fev Rover, so let's see what he had to say.
We got really lucky. I did something different this year. I wore my lucky jacket to the post draw, and we had a great draw. She was 8, great, tough race. This is truly an international race. this is the best in the world, the best filly. So, but she's one of the best. So we're going to find out where she stacks up.
Your assistant Nick Tomlinson was very keen on her before the Beverly D at Colonial Downs, and she's mixed her form a little bit since with a fourth and then another first. How do you like her chances against what you're saying, the best of the best here in the filly meta?
Well, that, it's just like I said, it's truly a real international race. Some of the best in the world are here. So I just don't know. You never know until you run, but she's training well. She likes to win, so.
So we talked about the winners of the post position draw, but did you all think there were any losers of the draw? James?
Well, I think, sometimes these inside posts can be a concern in 2-turn races. Horses may like the race a little, may lose ground going into that turn if they're caught in tight quarters. I thought it was interesting. The juvenile turf, River Tiber is number 2, is 3-1 on the morning line. He's coming out of these 6 furlong straight races. He's got to handle 2 turns and all the traffic to his outside. Good Night Olive got post 1 in the filly and mare sprint. Not real keen on that. And the other post draw that I thought that the draw in the Classic was important for Saudi Crown and Arabian Night as far as the dynamics go. Arabian Night was drawn outside the speed in the Haskell. He had to duel with a horse that was sent to the lead and actually set the pace at the first quarter, and he came up short. That enables Saudi Crown to potentially try to steal the race wire to wire. I don't think he had any chance if he was drawn outside of Arabian Night. So I saw that as a detriment for Arabian Night. Vance, what did you think about losers at the post draw?
Well, the 2 that stood out to me were first Master of the Seas in the mile, who drew post 14. Now, typically that's very not ideal in most circumstances. However, Breeders' Cup Mile history at Santa Anita would prove otherwise. We had Caracante break from post 14 and produce an upset in the mile maybe about a decade ago. And then if you go back further, Lure won from post 12 when most people thought he could never win from that post. And then a decade later, 6 Perfections also won from post 12. Not that Master of the Seas is in the same class as any of those 3, but maybe post 14 won't be too much of a detriment for him. And you mentioned Goodnight Olive in the filly and mare sprint. I also don't think post 1 is ideal. I think back to her Derby City Distaff performance at Churchill Downs on Derby Day. She was boxed in on the inside most of the way, kind of a rider's race, trying to get her blocked in there, and she just didn't get out of the hole in time to win that race as a heavy favorite. So I don't know if those tactics will be repeated again on Saturday, but it is a bit of a concern for her drawing post 1.
We talked horses that are coming in with a disadvantage in the Breeders' Cup, but let's also look at some long shots that you like in these races. And before we talk long shots, first, Andrew Brown interviewed Chad Summers, the trainer of a long shot in the Breeders' Cup Classic, which is Clapton, coming off a win in the Lucas Classic.
Post position 7 for Clapton in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Are you happy with that post position?
Look, it gets real now. Before you see the fields, you're on the A, you're trying to get in, and you feel like you deserve the shot the way that the horse's kind of career is gone and the way this year is gone. And, now you're in the race and you're right in the middle. So, hopefully it's good things for us.
How's he been training at Santa Anita?
He's been super. We came over here 10 days ago. We wanted to kind of get a feel of the track, get a breeze over the track, which we think will play to our advantage. And, just since he's been here, it's like every day it's just been better than the next. And we wish the race was tomorrow, not Saturday.
There's some international monsters in the field. What do you make of the field?
Oh, it's good for us. Look, our goal is to go to the Dubai World Cup on March 30th next year. So to see the winner of the Dubai World Cup from last year, to see the winner of the UAE Derby in this race from last year, some of these up-and-coming 3-year-olds, in Saudi Crown and Arabian Night, who you would think, that would be their plan with, obviously, with Zidane Racing, spending so much time over there. So, it's good to kind of see where we're at right now in the Breeders' Cup Classic and where we need to be on March 30th in the Dubai World Cup.
All right, James, what do you think about Clapton, or are there some other long shots that you're looking toward in the Breeders' Cup?
Clapton has a little appeal to me if I'm playing a superfecta in the Breeders' Cup Classic, maybe even a trifecta, because I do expect the pace to be pretty solid in there. I give Saudi Crown a chance to lead wire to wire. I think that colt is really progressing, and he's fast. He's got big Brisnet speed ratings, and I think he's like I said, he got the best of the post draw with the other speed in the classic. One long shot I'll mention, Stroll spied in the mile, might not be good enough to win the race, but he ran second at 55-1 last year. He comes off a runner-up to Master of the Seas in the Woodbine Mile, and he's working like bullet 5 furlong and half-mile works for Roger Atfield, so appears to be coming into the race in good shape, Vance.
Yeah, I'll mention another long shot in the mile, and that's the 3-year-old More Than Looks, who just dominated in Jefferson Cup against fellow 3-year-olds at Churchill Downs in September. I mean, this horse has got a tremendous late closing kick, and the kind that you could see against older horses. Now he's obviously taking a huge step up in class on Saturday, but he's a 3-year-old on the improve, and I think back. And I go back quite a ways. I think back to a 3-year-old like It's All Greek to Me, who ran a bang-up race behind Royal Academy in the 1990 mile at 30-40-1 or whatever. So watch out for some of these lightly raced 3-year-olds in some of these races taking on older horses for the first time. I think More Than Looks is certainly worthy of being tossed into the lower rungs of the exotics for sure.
I like it. Well, that's all the time we have today. Be sure to catch all the Breeders' Cup action at TwinSpires. And we have a special money back offer where you can get up to $10 back on your win bet if your horse finishes second or third in select Breeders' Cup races. Good luck this weekend, and thanks, James and Vance.